At what cost did Sissy Spacek remain entirely true to her character? To feel alone like Carrie, she shunned the entire cast. She adorned her trailer with biblical pictures and religious iconography. Refusing to use stunt doubles, she spent hours buried below in the graveyard scene. Her skin was harmed by the blood, the performers were injured by the fire, and the psychological toll was severe. However, she never acted out of character. She finally acknowledges how far she's come at the age of 75. 3 minutes after midnight on Christmas Day 1949, Sissy Spacek was born in Quitman, Texas. It seemed like something from a storybook when she first entered the world. Edwin, her father, spent almost 30 years as a county agent for Texas A&M. Virginia, her mother, was of English and Irish descent. She had Sudeten German and Moravian Czech background on her father's side. The Czech word Spacek, which means star, is where the name Spacek originated, or cigarette in colloquial terms. Her first cousin was the well-known actor Rip Torn, and her grandpa had previously served as mayor of a tiny Texas town. Not everyone called her Sissy. Mary Elizabeth Spacek was her full name, but, for life, she was referred to as Sissy by her 2 elder brothers. It was a love-inspired nickname. It followed her all the way to Hollywood from their comfortable Texas home. It became her identity there. She attempted to become a vocalist after moving to New York at the age of 17. She released a song critiquing John Lennon for a Naked album cover under the moniker Rainbow. It didn't work. Things started to change though when she stopped using the stage name and adopted Sissy. Sissy's passion for acting began at a young age. She participated in her first talent contest at the age of 6, singing and dancing. She had a beautiful upbringing in East Texas. She swam in local waterways, rode horses, and scaled trees. As she lay in bed, she recalled giving thanks to God for her village and family. Dreams were beginning to develop, but she didn't want to be anywhere else. Her passion for performing was ignited by a local cheer squad. The fire was started in a Mineola movie theater. She pictured herself jumping into the movie Come Blow Your Horn. That desire was further stoked by her cousin Rip Torn's visit. She would question him about every aspect of acting. She was the epitome of popularity in high school, serving as homecoming queen, majorette, and cheerleader. It never seemed to anyone that this intelligent Texas kid would one day frighten the world on television, but she did. In the 1976 horror movie Carrie, she portrayed Carrie White at the age of 26. The naive prom queen became a nightmare with telekinetic abilities. It was a terrifying transformation. How someone so kind could be so forceful on TV astounded critics. She was nominated for her first Oscar, and it was for something more than just acting. Robbie, Sissy's brother, passed away from leukemia when she was 17. At the age of 18, he was an entertainer and a track star. She referred to it as the pivotal moment in her life. Her parents sent her to live in New York with Rip Torn and his wife while he was ill. She felt empty when she got back to the city after Robbie's death, but something changed. She was fearless because of that anguish. She subsequently commented, "Once you've had an experience like that, nothing else scares you." She sensed his presence even decades afterward. "In my heart, he is extremely alive." Her mother had advised her to grieve him completely before rising to the occasion, and she did just that. She used that pain as fuel. She was still hoping to pursue a career in music back in New York. She published John You Went Too Far this time when she was 19. Though poetic, the lyrics were direct. Lennon's naked photo with Yoko Ono upset her. The song didn't make the charts. She was dumped by Roulette Records, but she persisted. She attended the Lee Strasberg Institute to study acting. She discovered how to extract feeling from actual suffering. She was turned down after passing an audition at Decca Records. She sounded too much like Loretta Lynn, they said. It would take her years to realize the irony. In 1972, she landed her first significant film role. She portrayed a young girl being sold into sexual slavery in Prime Cut. It was startling. The scenes were explicit. The audience was unsure of what to think. Sissy, however, didn't back down. She desired important jobs. She was also involved in the New York art scene at this time. Andy Warhol's experimental film, Factory, and Locations That Push Boundaries. TV series came later. Appearances as guests on The Waltons, American Style and Love. She was learning, even though they were only baby steps. Badlands followed. Everything altered as a result. She portrayed Holly Sargis, a 15-year-old who flees with Martin Sheen's character, a murderer. The film was loosely inspired on a 1958 murderous rampage. Spacek, who was only 23, produced a voiceover that was both poetic and unsettling. She gave a subtle, aloof, even dreamy performance that was rich in nuance. She was nominated for BAFTA as a result. The critics were taken aback. At Spain's top film festival, Martin Sheen took home the Best Actor award. Later on, the Badlands would be kept in the National Film Registry of the United States. Terrence Malick, the director, had all faith in her. She handled her part, which carried a lot of the film's emotional weight, with a composure derived from life experience, a sense of innocence tinged with grief. She had no desire to be famous. She was attempting to be truthful. Her career would be defined by her honesty. A big audition or a fortunate break didn't begin Sissy Spacek's path to become Carrie White. It began with a behind-the-scenes employment. Jack Fisk, her husband, was employed as art director on the low-budget Brian De Palma movie Phantom of the Paradise in 1974. In order to assist with set decoration, Fisk imported Space Echelon. She struggled with it. That visit altered everything. Even if De Palma quipped that she was a terrible set decorator, she was subtly transported to De Palma's realm. De Palma was searching for actors for the Stephen King novel-based movie Carrie, around the beginning of 1976. He didn't think about Spacek at first, but Fisk kept pushing. "My wife deserves a shot," he told De Palma. With reluctance, De Palma conceded. He instructed Spacek to get ready and purchase the book. The gateway that changed her life was opened by just one call. Spacek was quite serious about the audition. She did more than simply appear. She changed. She repeatedly read the book, committing to memory every emotion and bit of suffering that Carrie experienced. Then, in order to be accessible, she ruined a commercial job. She took a risk that evening before the audition. She skipped the facial wash. She neglected to clean her teeth. She used Vaseline to make her hair appear oily and uncared for. When she was in 7th grade, her mother sewed her an old sailor dress, which she put on. She even made it hang unevenly by pulling out the hem. Her goal was to appear as though no one wanted to be around her. She aspired to Carrie's feelings. She recalled a lovely but impoverished girl from her school who was teased for wearing shabby clothes. She went further because of that memory. She subsequently recalled, "I was feeling very sorry for myself," which was ideal. De Palma, meanwhile, was examining numerous other actresses. He saw more than 100 girls. Betsy Slade, a quiet performer in our day, was his first choice. In reality, he informed her that she was unlikely to receive the part when he called Spacek. She shouldn't miss her commercial shot, he said. Spacek almost failed. Meanwhile, something odd was going on in Hollywood. Carrie and Star Wars were being cast simultaneously by De Palma and George Lucas. Both movies had the same young ladies trying out. Carrie White was almost Carrie Fisher. Amy Irving almost portrayed Princess Leia before playing Sue Snell in Carrie. Melanie Griffith made an attempt as well. But what Spacek had, nobody had. She wasn't cruel to Carrie. She created a persona that the audience could adore, despite their fear of her. Fisk claimed that the second leading candidate performed Carrie like someone you would want to stay away from. You wanted to assist Spacek. Spacek immersed herself in the book once more the night before her screen test. She lived in it rather than only studying it. She read of Carrie's suffering, her mother's strictness, her bullying, and her abilities. She took in feeling instead than memorizing lines. And when she entered the room the following morning, she made advantage of that emotion. De Palma had a change of heart after the screen test. After filming began, Spacek continued to work. She decided to be Carrie. On the first day, she informed the cast that she would not be involved. She needed to feel alone, even if she claimed to love them. She avoided everyone as a result. Later, PJ Soles, who portrayed one of the bullies, claimed that X's decision made it simpler for the other actors to abuse her on screen. It wasn't that they were mean, they were assisting her. It wasn't just Carrie that Spacek played. She turned into herself. She even made a shrine out of her camper. She filled it with a large illustrated Bible and religious images. She looked at the artwork, pictures of people being judged, punished, and saved inside. She claimed that those paintings taught her how to hold her body. Spacek would physically mimic the stances of sinners being stoned in instances where Carrie felt humiliated or broken. It was complete involvement, not only acting. When the cameras stopped, she maintained that level of immersion. She was wearing a dress soaked in synthetic blood for the well-known prom scene. It took days to shoot. The blood shouldn't have changed appearance with each sampling, according to Spacek. She thus requested a trailer behind the studio from MGM. She also spent 3 nights sleeping in the clothing. To ensure that everything on screen matched, she survived and stayed in the blood. She didn't care that everyone was startled by her level of dedication. "It has a match," she said. "It should look fantastic." People noticed on set. According to Betty Buckley, who portrayed the gym teacher, Spacek was always courteous. She kept her distance, held her herbal tea, and welcomed everyone, but she never made a scene. Although she remained committed to the position, she valued the work and the people. The scene was meant to be just another prom. However, one of the most memorable events in the history of horror films was what transpired on the set of Carrie in 1976. It took more than 2 weeks to shoot that one blood-soaked scene in which a wet Spacek stands there in horror. The group completed 35 takes to make everything perfect. The entire operation was a technical and emotional marathon.
even if the actual blood spill only required 1 or possibly 2 attempts, depending on whether you believe Spacek or Brian De Palma. They employed split-screen methods, traditional effects, and no computer-generated imagery. The crew literally sets the entire set on fire when mayhem breaks out in the gym. Not everything was under control either. William Catt, who played Tommy Ross, recalled how the assistant director screamed for everyone to flee in a panic. De Palma, however, simply yelled, "Keep rolling." Instead of merely acting, Sissy Spacek experienced the horror firsthand. For 3 days in a row, she wore the same blood-soaked dress. She let the sticky mixture to solidify on her flesh while sleeping and sitting in it. The reason was that she wanted to experience that trap as Carrie would. Suffocating, embarrassed feeling. Of course, the blood wasn't genuine. In order for it to flow perfectly, a mixture of corn syrup, food coloring, and water was heated to body temperature, or around 98 degrees Fahrenheit. However, it quickly started to dry under the intense studio lighting. As it solidified, it began to tug and adhere to her flesh like glue. It turned crusty in 30 minutes. She would get stuck with her arms. In an attempt to keep the blood moist so she could move, crew personnel trailed her with spray bottles. She never deviated from her role, even if by day 3 it began to smell of sweets, sweat, and heat, a terrible combination. Even worse were the fire scenes in the gym. The heat caused the blood on her skin to start caramelizing. In order for her to walk, makeup professionals had to chisel it off her elbows. Her hair even stiffened. Members of the crew had to comb it strand by strand because it wouldn't move on its own. In one instance, her hair appeared more plastic-like than human since it was so firm from the syrup. The most bizarre aspect, though, she described how the blood felt like a warm blanket when it first fell on her. That feeling was fleeting. Her skin was throbbing and splitting in a matter of minutes. Every time her arms contacted her torso, they adhered to it. Between takes, no one was able to clean up the blood. The splatter could never be replicated in the same manner. The source of the blood was not a machine. Her spouse poured it down from above. Her new husband at the time, Jack Fisk, who was the art director for the movie, climbed a ladder and poured almost 3 gallons of the viscous crimson liquid over her head. It was odd and personal. In the first place, he had helped her get the part. It was not even intended for her to be cast. De Palma only permitted her to try out because she was kind to Fisk. He was blown away, however, when Spacek appeared, naked, dressed as Carrie. She was given the role immediately. The scene that characterized both of their careers was the bloody collision between the wife and husband in one memorable take. The trauma didn't stop there, though. Spacek declined a stunt double for Carrie's hand popping out of the ground in the last graveyard scene. She desired to do it on her own. De Palma was taken aback. She persisted even though he didn't want her to. So Fisk intervened again. He constructed a box and put her inside. They buried her beneath rocks made of pumice. She waited for hours in complete darkness in the box. She pushed her hand through the stones and upward when it was time. Her fingers were repeatedly ripped up by the jagged stones. She continued without complaining even though they were bleeding. Spacek had been quiet earlier in the shoot. She stayed away from the rest of the cast, studied paintings of people getting stoned, and read gloomy passages from the Bible. She wanted to remain secluded, awkward, and lonely in keeping with her nature. It was successful. Every frame was filled with that tension. Other performers started to sense it as well. Nancy Allen, who portrayed the cruel girl Chris, recalled the scene in the shower where Carrie is harassed. "It was like a ceremony," she remarked. "We had to push ourselves to the limit. I remember shaking," she said. "It was unsettling, really unsettling. The actresses weren't merely cruel. They began to sense it. That scene's brutality no longer seemed phony. It was authentic. And there was some actual anguish. At the prom massacre scene, PJ Souls, the girl wearing the red baseball cap, was struck directly by a fire hose. Full pressure was what De Palma desired. It was risky, the fire marshal said. Souls was struck directly in the ear. Her eardrum ruptured. For 6 months, she was unable to hear in that ear. In fact, the final cut shows her wince. After that, slide down the stands. She was taken to the hospital by them. De Palma also retained the video. Others were also injured. Actual injuries, bruising, and cracked ribs. However, everything made it to the screen. What began as a minor horror movie evolved into something horrific, exquisite, and memorable. Critics took note. According to Pauline Kael, Spacek's performance was akin to a traditional chameleon act. She transformed from a helpless youngster to a radiant beauty to a terrifying vengeance. Her face became older in front of you. Spacek received her first Oscar nomination for that one role. It made her famous and demonstrated to the world that real horror does not require computer-generated imagery. All you need is dedication, perspiration, and a lot of fake blood. Many question Sissy Spacek's decision to play country music icon Loretta Lynn in Coal Miner's Daughter. Playing characters ranging in age from 13 to middle age, she was 30 years old. She was not at all like Loretta. Spacek had light reddish blonde hair, hazel eyes, and faint freckles. Loretta had gray eyes, rich brown hair, and porcelain skin. However, none of that was important. Sissy was chosen by Loretta Lynn herself. When she paused at Spacek, she was looking through pictures. "She is that. That's the daughter of the coal miner," she remarked. The ensuing changes were among the most striking in the history of cinema. Sissy did more than simply dress up. She moved like a timid adolescent. She displayed the anguish of a girl who reared her brothers by lowering her head and hunching her back. Sissy started to stand up straighter as the movie went on. Her gaze became piercing. She raised her voice. It was more than makeup. Loretta was born. Roger Ebert, a film critic, was taken aback. According to him, Spacek has the ability to portray people of any age on television and consistently make you believe it. However, that was only the beginning. Most people thought she would lip-sync when she sang. Loretta Lynn's voice is unique after all. However, director Michael Apted instructed her to perform live on set, singing every note and every song. Everything changed with that choice. Like Loretta, Spacek also learned to sing. Her voiced soundtrack made it to the Billboard Top 40. It turned out beautifully. On the country chart, her rendition of Coal Miner's Daughter peaked at number 2. She was even nominated for a Grammy. Critics were unable to distinguish between Spacek's singing and the genuine Loretta. It wasn't just the sound either. Every lyric she wrote conveyed the grit, the ecstasy, and the anguish. It was honest and unvarnished. She made it to Oscar night because of her honesty. March 31st, 1981. Dustin Hoffman said her name as he opened the envelope. Sissy Spacek, the best actress, approached in awe and thanked everyone. However, Loretta Lynn's presence in the crowd, witnessing her life being portrayed on screen, made the occasion famous. Even more bizarre, the actual Jake LaMotta was present when Robert De Niro won Best Actor for Raging Bull that same evening. Only 14 actresses have ever won both the Oscar and the Golden Globe for the same performance, including Spacek. The movie received 7 nominations, one of which was for Best Picture. It was selected for preservation by the Library of Congress almost 40 years later, demonstrating that Sissy's performance had become ingrained in American culture. She portrayed Beth Horman in the 1982 film Missing, a character who is searching for her spouse during the turmoil in Chile. For that, she received her 3rd Oscar nomination. She returned 2 years later in The River, when she played a farm wife attempting to rescue her house in a moment of crisis. It was her 4th nomination. She earned her 5th in 1986 with Crimes of the Heart, a dark comedy. She made people laugh and cry while portraying a woman who shot her violent husband. A lengthy lull ensued, with no further Oscar nominations for 15 years. In 2001, that was altered. Playing Ruth Fowler, a mother whose kid is murdered, she made a comeback in the Bedroom, making the movie only cost $1.7 million. A total of $44.8 million was earned. Her performance was deemed devastating by critics. She swept the main critic circles and took home the AFI Award, the Independent Spirit Award, and the Golden Globe. She was 51 years old and stronger than ever. Many people still think that The Bedroom should have won Best Picture, despite the fact that Halle Berry won the Oscar. But her performance in Night was far more emotionally taxing than that role. Mom. She played Jessie in the 1986 drama, a lady who methodically plans to commit suicide despite her mother's pleas for her to stop. The movie takes place in real time, 96 minutes, with each room having a clock. No respite, no breaks. Day after day it was filmed in chronological order. The house remained the same. The feelings grew. Spacek needed to be calm, steady, and aloof. It had a cost. She later said that the movie made her feel down. Critics appreciated the raw power she brought to the role, even though it only made $442,000 at the box office. If you go back much further, you'll find the odd, surreal 1977 movie 3 Women. It was directed by Robert Altman and was a 50-page dream without a script. Pinky, portrayed by Spacek, is a reserved young woman who develops an obsession with her workplace. Her character changes as the movie progresses. She is nice at first, then chilly. It's unsettling. The critics were blown away. The New York Film Critics Circle awarded her Best Supporting Actress. At Cannes, co-star Shelley Duvall took home the Best Actress prize. However, the people found the film too strange. For years it wasn't properly distributed on home video, before fading into cult status.
But Sissy didn't stop. She started streaming in her 70s. She returned to horror with Castle Rock on Hulu after portraying a distraught mother in Bloodline on Netflix. She starred in Night Sky at the age of 72, in which her character discovers a hidden room that opens to another planet. She received a Saturn Award nomination despite the show's cancellation after just one season. She will now star with Michelle Williams in FX's Dying for Sex at the age of 75.
On the set of Badlands in 1972, Sissy Spacek got to know Jack Fisk. The main actress was her. The art director was him. Jack once took her out on a boat excursion close to his treehouse. There was a sudden flood. Their boat went down. It was almost a miracle they survived. Everything changed in that instant. Later, Sissy remarked, "I knew life with Jack was going to be eventful right then." On April 12, 1974, 2 years later, they were married. It wasn't your average wedding in Hollywood. Sported blue jeans. Their dog was the only one that saw it. They opened a joint bank account with precisely $30, the cost of a divorce at the time, because they were so uncertain about getting married. "Now I think it would take something dramatic like death to end it," Sissy quipped afterwards. They were more than just life partners. They worked together. She was directed by Jack in Violets Are Blue 1986 and Raggedy Man 1981. Throughout the 1970s and beyond, they continued to collaborate on films. It was what united them. They have one of the longest marriages in Hollywood, having been together for 51 years as of 2025. Sissy and Jack made a crazy choice in 1981, when she was at the height of her fame and had just won the Oscar for Coal Miner's Daughter. In Virginia, they purchased a 210-acre horse farm. They had permanently left Los Angeles by 1982. Far from flashing cameras, their new home was nestled in the Blue Ridge Mountains. It turned into their haven. Sissy referred to the property as her haven. Just silence, no interviews, no cameras. The fields were grazed by horses. There were trees all around a pool. Patios are neglected.